What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Had to delay this one a little bit because I was deep in the weeds with the optimal running back draft strategy article that I released yesterday. I was in a groove with that, wanted to finish it before I started this one, so I had to push this back just a little bit. But that's up on the site now. It is the most in-depth draft strategy project I've personally ever seen, and I'm really happy with how it's come out so far. So check that out if you haven't already, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. But today, we're going to continue walking through each division, going over the offseason news for the AFC and the NFC East. In this one, we'll start off with the AFC East. The team that made some really big splashes in free agency, we'll do the Miami Dolphins up first. Of course, mega contract to Tyreek Hill, ultimately 4 years, $120 million. He's going to step in as the wide receiver one, and is obviously going to limit the target ceiling of Jalen Waddle. With that being said, we should still expect these two to have such a massive target share amongst the both of them that they can still put up really good numbers. I think a lot of people are very concerned if they have Jalen Waddle in Dynasty or they wanted to draft him and redraft this season. Obviously, you have to move both of them down, right? Tyreek Hill coming from playing with Mahomes, being a feature weapon in that offense, to still being featured in this offense, but obviously it's a much, it'll be a more run-heavy offense, and it's just not as good going from Mahomes to Tua. But like I said, they're both going to have such a massive target share that I think they can both excel, right? Because this entire offense is going to be centered around getting these two the ball, and if they're not doing that, running it effectively. That is it. That is every single play is either going to be running it or designed to one of these two. And so while that might seem obvious, just knowing that just guarantees that the target share is still going to be very, very high. So again, absolutely have to drop both of their values. But I mean, if they're both going to have a target share like north of 20%, and they're probably going to be highly efficient, I still like both of them. I think we can probably get them at decent values this season. I think the market overall is still going to bring them down, so we're not going to have to pay, the price tags we were going to have to pay before they're on the same team. Obviously, this is fantastic for Tua. Now he's got two elite weapons. He's going to have an improved ground game because the other contracts, they got Cedric Wilson, but they got Chase Edmonds, they got Raheem Mostert. So a lot of really, really good signings. They have set him up to succeed, right? At this point, if he fails, it's on him, right? It's not on the players around him. He has every opportunity to perform well this season. And again, I like all of their signings. Having Waddle and Tyreek Hill are just the perfect combination of wide receivers for Tua, for the short passing game. But having Cedric Wilson in there just to keep defenses honest, and then having the combination of Chase Edmonds and Mostert, two running backs that you don't really want to give 25, 30 touches to, but on their own, Mostert's really, really good as a pure running back on the ground on early downs. Chase Edmonds, really, really good on third downs, can also mix in on early downs. And so just being able to rotate those guys in, rotate through the receivers, and just feature Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, it's going to be a good offense. I think the one guy who really, really gets hurt from this is Mike Gesicki. Not only do they now have three wide receivers capable of playing from the slot, two wide receivers who are going to be heavily featured, they're going to want to run the ball more, which he's not good in run blocking. And of course, if they want to run the ball, that's taking targets away from Gesicki. I just think if he hadn't broken out before, when he was the only guy, and I guess you could say he had a breakout because he had good seasons, but having a true breakout where you're consistently relying on him in fantasy, if that hasn't happened yet, I don't think it's happening right now. So I would say that people are probably going to overdraft Gesicki this season just because they want some part of this offense. And I don't think he really fits with what they're trying to do this year. So I don't think we'll be attacking him, but I think we're going to be drafting Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think people are going to maybe bump them down a little too much. That was kind of it for Miami, though. Those are the big moves on offense. Of course, it's more moves than a lot of teams have made this offseason. We'll move on to a very much less exciting team this offseason. That's the Patriots. They decided to sign the former Miami Dolphin, Devonta Parker, giving him a 4-year, $30.5 million contract. They've given some extremely mediocre players a lot of money these last 2 years. They paid up for Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne. But I suppose, that's not all that surprising given that they traded a second round pick to rent Mohamed Sanu for a few games since they need help at wide receiver after drafting N'Keal Harry over A.J. Brown, right? This team does not make the best moves in free agency. They do not make the best moves in the draft. But I digress. I mean, I guess having one extra receiver is going to help. The problem, I guess, is just like they've got a bunch of mediocre receivers, right? Like Devonta Parker is not that incredible, right? He's like fine. He's probably going to start given the money they gave him. And honestly, he's more talented than anyone that they do have. But he's also Devonta Parker, right? He's disappointed us numerous times in the past. He has had worth ethic issues, which is not something that's going to fly in New England. And just like look at their core, like obviously N'Keal Harry's gone, right? He's not going to be there anymore. But they have like Myers, Parker, Bourne, Aguilar. It's like all of those guys are fine, but none of them are going to elevate the offense. I still think this is a run-first offense. They're going to run it a ton. They're still going to use their tight ends, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. It's just like a lot of players on a lower volume offense that I want to say is below average, but like maybe they trust Mac Jones more. Maybe Mac Jones does better in his second season. But in general, if you've got this many players, right, there's a lot of players that are going to get the football this season. You want this to be a high-scoring offense. You want this to be an elite offense, especially through the air. And that's just really not going to be the case. And so it seems like you're going to have a ton of players who have random weeks where they're useful. A lot of players who are like consistently fine, but no one that you're able to consistently be like, this is my wide receiver too. So I think in general, we're probably just going to avoid this passing offense entirely unless we're just getting these guys for free. Like if you like one of them and they're going in like the 17th, 18th round, I have no problem doing that. But if anyone starts going like remotely early, like if Devonta Parker gets hyped up and he starts going really early, I think that's going to be an easy fade for us. Next up, we've got the New York Jets, the team that no one wants to go to this offseason. They tried to sign Tyreek Hill and failed. They tried to trade for Metcalf and at least have so far failed. Reports have come out that just no one in free agency wants to go there, which is probably like the least shocking news you've ever heard. They are absolutely going to draft a wide receiver. And I really hope it's not someone that we like because I don't really have any faith in that offense at all. Like you guys know, I like Elijah Moore. I like Michael Carter as players. But boy, is that offense really difficult to get behind. I mentioned in a previous video that they signed both CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin. Uzomah is the more interesting fantasy option, but I mean, let's be honest. We need to be careful who we're targeting this offense. We can't be targeting like Uzomah, Carter, Elijah Moore, the rookie they get. Like, this is a bad offense. They're not going to be efficient. They might not be good at all. They might not score many touchdowns. Like, it's going to be a bad offense. So if we're taking these guys late, it's fine. Overall, you're probably just avoiding this team. Next up, final team in the AFC East is the Buffalo Bills. Another team that didn't do a whole lot in free agency, although a different reason than New York, right? New York tried to do a ton. No one wanted to go there. I'm sure everyone wants to go to Buffalo, but they didn't really need a ton. Basically, all they did was swap out Beasley for Jameson Crowder, and that's it, right? The running backs, they still have Singletary and Moss, although I've seen reports they could draft a running back. We'll see if that happens. That seems unlikely to me, only because this team wants to throw it. They want to lean on Josh Allen. They don't need to use their running backs all that much, and so spending an early pick at running back, like I can see like a 4th, 5th, 6th round. Like I can see that, but that's also not someone who's going to immediately challenge Singletary and Moss. I would say like if they're doing like a top 3 rounds, that's going to challenge both those two. I don't see that happening, right? I think there are other spots that they could choose to upgrade or get more depth at than running back, because running back's not an important piece of that offense. But I've seen reports that they could go early at the running back position since they're trying to win a Super Bowl. But I mean, just look at what Kansas City did, right? Kansas City was like, hey, why don't we just draft a running back? Let's draft Clyde. We're trying to win a Super Bowl. We see how that backfired, right? It's just not smart taking running backs early in the NFL draft. But beside that, they still have Diggs. They still have Gabriel Davis, who we expect to take another step forward this season. They still have Dawson Knox at tight end. So a very, very similar offense this season as to what we saw before. One interesting signing is O.J. Howard. I imagine that they looked at this as like, hey, if we get into the red zone and we have Knox and Howard, we are already really good. Like that's a really dangerous duo to have on top of having, Josh Allen running it in, having Stephon Diggs, having Gabriel Davis, having now Crowder. Like that, who are you guarding at that point? I'm interested to see if they're going to rotate Knox and Howard, if maybe Howard is only like in red zone packages. Do they go with no running backs at times? Like if they don't draft someone as well, maybe that gives some sort of indication of this. But do they go with like no running back, just having Knox, Howard, Diggs, Crowder, and Davis? That's possible. Not like all the time, but like if they want to run that, that's a dangerous lineup. Remains to be seen, right? I'm sure we're going to see plenty of reports out of camp as far as what they plan to do on this one, but I like the move. I mean, it was risk-free. He signed very, very cheap. We know he's extremely talented, at least athletically. He's been a bust so far, but if anyone can change that, Josh Allen, right? You're playing with Josh Allen, you're going to get some decent looks, so pretty good there. Biggest splash overall was probably Von Miller. That's not going to change anything for the offense. Like, of course, the defense being better is going to help the team overall win more games, but they were already a fantastic team, fantastic offense, a team that doesn't take their foot off the gas. So even though they might get up and stay up a little bit more, they just keep going until they're at 40, 50 points. So no real fantasy impact besides boosting the defense, but figured I'd mention it in case someone didn't see. On to the NFC East. We'll start off with the Washington Commanders, something I'm going to screw up a million times this season. The Commanders. New quarterback now. Unfortunately, though, for Washington fans, it's Carson Wentz, right? Probably the least exciting free agent quarterback this offseason. Wentz is still obviously an upgrade over Heineke, right? But far from a lead option. Definitely not a long-term option. So while I think the offense will be better, it's not going to be better by like that much, right? McKissick signed with the Bills for like a few minutes, and then he decided to re-sign with the Commanders. Buffalo was very upset. They really, really wanted McKissick. Also kind of adding to like that whole thing with Buffalo that I don't think they're looking early. I just think they're looking for like another piece to help them when they throw the ball. I don't see it. I don't see why they'd spend an early pick. Spend a later pick. Get someone that'll help you in the passing game, like McKissick. But yeah, McKissick signs with them, or like verbally signs or something, then pulls back from the deal. Signs the exact same deal. I think it was like 2 years, $7 million to return to the Commanders. They also lost DeAndre Carter. They lost Ricky Seals-Jones. They currently do not have Adam Humphries re-signed. I don't really know where that stands. Those might seem irrelevant to you, but given how bad they were last season, I mean, those are like, not counting running backs, 3 of the top 4 players in terms of receptions. They were the only non-running backs besides McLaurin to have over 20 catches last year. So, especially if Humphries is gone, there's going to be a lot to fill at the wide receiver position. I'm really hoping Curtis Samuel can get fully healthy this season and can produce like we know he can. He can be a really, really, really good weapon for this offense. I still believe in his talent, and I'm sure the vast majority of the community has completely given up on him. But I like him. I mean, they're going to draft someone, right? Like, you have to think they're drafting a wide receiver. Maybe it's not, super early, but they have to, right? You can't just go with McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and then no one, right? They're going to take someone, but I still think Curtis Samuel is someone hopefully we can get late this season. But yeah, not much other offseason news for the Commanders. Everything else has just been about how, like, awful their culture is, how awful their management is. But for, like, fantasy, it's really just, hey, Wentz is the quarterback now. That's a slight upgrade. Next up, we've got the New York Giants, who are another team that's been fairly quiet this offseason. There were rumors they could make a big splash and trade away. I guess it wouldn't be a big splash because like, the market's not really there. But like a big move for fantasy would be Saquon Barkley being traded away, right? That would be a huge move in fantasy. Nothing's come of that yet. That does not mean that nothing will, but at least as of right now, nothing's happened. I would say their biggest news has been losing Evan Ingram, though he had kind of been phased out of the offense, plus had been hurt all the time, and so that's also not like a major impact to the team, especially just because they have so many people when everyone's fully healthy. Like, they have a lot of guys, kind of like New England. It's like they have a lot of guys. I would say their weapons are more talented than New England's, but just a lot of people getting the ball, and you don't love that in fantasy. But if If they can get all of Saquon, Golladay, Shepard, and Tony, all 100% healthy, all playing, that's not bad, right? Like, I don't think Daniel Jones is all that fantastic, but he's not terrible. And that's not a bad group of skill players, right? I mean, I probably like Tony the most, then Golladay, then Shepard. And of course, we have Shepard still returning from injury, so it's most likely that we have Golladay and Tony as the lead options to start the season. But if everyone there can get healthy, this is not a bad offense. And they've made some improvements to the offensive line. So I think they can be fine. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like I don't know. I mean, he tore Shepard, of course, I'm talking about here. He tore his Achilles back in December, and I think that's enough time technically to return. But he's 29 years old right now. Torn Achilles is a brutal injury for like explosiveness, and he was a good receiver. He's a fantastic route runner, a good receiver. I think he might take a pretty significant step back, and so I don't know that we'll ever be able to call him like 100%, at least in the next like season or two. Like, it takes a really long time historically to recover from a torn Achilles, and especially when like to begin the year, like that's going to be like rushing him back to start 100% from week one. And so I think it's going to be Tony. I think it's going to be Golladay. Then I think Shepard kind of after that. But yeah, only real changes have been swapping Evan Ingram for Ricky Seals-Jones, swapping Booker for Breida, and then just like upgrading the offensive line just like a little bit, which is obviously like a good thing, but no major changes for the Giants. Who knows? Again, they could trade away Barkley. They could draft a rookie. They could draft, a wide receiver, kind of knowing that Shepard might not be back to what he was before. Still a lot undecided, I think, for the Giants, but at least as of right now, those are kind of the moves they've made. Next up, we've got the Dallas Cowboys. The big news there, obviously, at wide receiver. They traded away Amari Cooper, lost Cedric Wilson in free agency, and they still have Michael Gallup recovering from the torn ACL in week 17. Those are some very big losses, and even the always overly optimistic Jerry Jones kind of seems to think that like Gallup's not going to be 100% by week one, and he's stated that like, hey, we just gave him a long 5-year contract, like we don't need to rush him back week one if he's not going to be 100% until week 4, right? So I would expect that first month of the season, maybe he's not out there. Maybe if he is out there, it's on a limited basis. That's what I'm expecting right now. But also, it's mid-April, right? We're going to learn so much more this summer. But yeah, right now I kind of expect that to happen. So again, I mean, losing those guys, Amari Cooper, Cedric Wilson, and then Gallup still recovering from injury, those are big losses. They had been trying to get Devonta Parker, talking to some free agents. They've been talking to some high-end draft prospects. So they're definitely going to make a move at wide receiver. Seems right now most likely that comes through the draft, taking someone early. Because I would say you probably can't enter the season with just CeeDee Lamb, a still recovering Gallup, and then James Washington. Didn't forget about him, but like James Washington's just a deep threat, right? He's not a possession receiver. He's not someone you want to consistently get like underneath looks to. He's someone that's just going to stretch the defense, get the ball downfield, which is fine. It's a good signing from like an NFL perspective, but he can't be one of their top 3 weapons in the passing game, right? Still have Dalton Schultz, still have CeeDee Lamb. It'll be the CeeDee Lamb show. But I mean, they have picks, 24, 56, and 88. I'm thinking they use a wide receiver one of those, maybe to 24, 56. But yeah, we'll probably like who they draft. We just kind of have to wait and see on that one. But like I said, at the end of the day, this is probably going to be the CeeDee Lamb show, and then we'll have some interest in whatever rookie they draft. Other than that, pretty much the same. Same running backs, same quarterbacks, and like I alluded to before, still have Dalton Schultz. I believe they released Blake Jarwin, but that doesn't really matter. Schultz is the guy at tight end. Final team we'll go over today is the Philadelphia Eagles, whose biggest move was probably that trade with the Saints. So the Eagles traded away picks 16, 19, and then a 6th rounder. For the Saints, 18, a third, a 7th, a 2023 first, and a 2024 second. I would say that the Saints won that trade, but I still understand why the Eagles did what they did. Next year's quarterback class is going to be much better than this year's. And so I'm thinking there's still reports they're going to draft a quarterback this season. I'm thinking with this trade, it's more likely that they pass this season, They give, maybe they draft a wide receiver. We'll talk about that in a second. But they just give, Hurts another chance. If he does well, they can use those picks to bolster the offense around him. But if he disappoints this season, maybe they look to find his replacement in the draft next year. Now that they'll have more draft capital then. That's kind of how I'm viewing the trade. Again, I think the Saints want it, but we'll see what they end up doing. Other than that, fairly quiet offseason. Signed Zach Pascal, re-signed Greg Ward, re-signed Boston Scott. Again, I think they're going to draft a wide receiver. You can't really start the season with Devonta Smith, still great. That's fine as a number one. But behind him, you can't have Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal, Rager, Greg Ward. You need something else, right? The Eagles need more talent at the wide receiver position. I think they're going to do that in the draft. I think re-signing Boston Scott kind of indicates that they're cool with the running backs. I think they're going to be run-heavy offense. I wouldn't be shocked if they drafted a running back. But I think you're fine entering the season with Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and then Kenneth Gainwell. I think that's fine. And it kind of helps you in different scenarios, right? Gainwell's going to be the guy you lean on in 2-minute drills, playing catch-up. He was fine as a backup running back last season. And I think you can roll with Boston Scott and Miles Sanders. But again, they've kind of shown over the previous seasons that they just don't want Miles Sanders to be a featured weapon. And so if they draft someone, don't be overly shocked. Again, I think it's going to run first offense. But yeah, they kind of need to find that number 3 because they got Smith. They got Dallas Goedert, but I think they need that number 3 option behind him. I think they'll look in the draft for that. So that is the fantasy relevant news this offseason out of the AFC and NFC East. As I mentioned to start, I uploaded the most in-depth draft strategy article I've ever written as part of the most in-depth draft strategy project I've personally ever seen in the industry. So if you are interested in that, you can check it out at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com, and all packages 20% off now through the end of April. Just have to use promo code FFA when you're signing up. And my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, then how about hitting the like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.